Welcome to the PrimeSpan Podcast, where we talk about aging, mental health, and living well in the years that matters the most. Each week, we cut through the noise to focus on what actually helps you feel clearer, steadier, and more in control as you age. If you're navigating the second half of life or thinking ahead, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Most people think independence is something you either have or lose. But when you talk to someone who spent years helping people rebuild it, you start to realize there's actually a process behind it. And more importantly, there's a cost to waiting too long. Today's conversation is about that process and the person behind it. We're joined by Coach Danielle Dolan, an occupational therapist. For all of the questions we're going to ask you, which is, I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be very curious. For all the roles and titles that you've had, what led you into the field of occupational therapy, and what drew you to this kind of work early on?
That's a great question, and it's one that I talk about. When we talk about our career and how we started, it's always nice to know that people take all these turns, right? So when I was in high school, I'm originally from Staten Island in New York City, and I was in a vocational technical high school, so not a high school that had a health care pathway, but I was interested in athletic training at the time. So I was doing athletic training for my high school, and I also had a job. My first real job was at a hospital, and I was in the medical library. So I was doing research back in the late 1980s. For doctors. So they would come in and they would give me their scripts of the search that they would like me to do. I'd go on the computer, do their search, print out all their articles and give it to them. But because I was in the hospital and then I was interested in health at the time, I started touring all the different areas of the hospital and seeing what people were doing. And the medical library was right by the rehab unit. So we had an inpatient rehab unit at the hospital, and I was very interested in what they were doing over there. So I talked to the therapists, I talked to the OTs, the PTs, the speech paths, and I wasn't quite sure, going into college, which of those three that I was interested in, but I knew it was one of them. I liked all three though. So when I went to college, I was kind of continuing to explore in that first year of which of those three I was interested in. And I landed on OT because it was the best fit for me. It was as far as my personality, the things that I like to do, what I could see myself doing. So the vision was there on the freshman, sophomore year in college side. But I did have some trouble. I did have some difficulty getting into an OT school. Back in the early 90s, it was extremely competitive. So I went to the University of Buffalo, and I applied to their OT school, and really they were very open and honest. And they said, your grades probably are not good enough. So I applied to other schools to get into OT school, and then landed at a smaller private college here in Buffalo, New York. So once I got in, I knew it was the right path for me. And I've been an extremely passionate OT since then. So it'll be 29 years this summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time. What made it stick for you, Danielle? I'm curious. 29 years is a long time for any career. And
yes.
What made it stick for you?
I think when I talk about it, and I've taken many directions. So I've done so many different things. I've done outpatient. I have been an independent practitioner. I worked with children in my early years, and then spent the last 20 years in long-term care in subacute rehab. But I think it's because I identify myself as a person that is part of my identity is being an OT. I have my water bottle right here that says occupational therapy, and it's one of those things where I don't know if you can see it because it's backwards, but I go to the gym with it. I go everywhere with my water bottle, and it is something. And when I talk in my full-time job, I am a coach for managers in healthcare. So I tell them about this is my background, because OT really is like the backbone of what I do with people. how I look at how we function as humans. We start with, what do you like to do? That's a very, that's a question that we ask in all settings. What do you enjoy? What is your purpose? What do you find enjoyment in? So I do start all of my questions with that. What do you like to do? What are you good at?
I love it. Danielle, whenever I think about OT, especially from the field from where I'm coming from, OT has always been an area where it provides independence. Was there any moment in your career that you see a career that changed how you help people to maintain independence typically?
Yes. So sometimes when we think about it or we look at it and we talk about experiences with others, it doesn't always have the same effect as yourself and your personal life. So I would say the one that really, coming from my background, my mom had a stroke in 2018. I live in Buffalo, New York, and she lives in Fort Myers, Florida. And when she had the stroke, she was at work and she was having medical issues, which led to, up to the stroke. But after that happened and she was stable in the hospital, I decided I was going to go down there at the end of her rehab and help her figure out how she was going to, do the rest of her life, because I knew that if I could just see how she was in her own environment, in her own house, I could help her and be able to figure out, what would be the safest place for her, the place that she would be the most successful. She lived, my dad passed away like 20 years before this. So she lived alone in her house with her cat. So I kind of just watched what she did and how she did it, how much energy it took her to take a shower, how much energy it took her to make a meal, doing higher level things like her bills. I watched all of it, in a more of the lens of an OT, not necessarily her daughter, because I knew that it was important to look at it that way. And then over the next 6 months after that, we helped her figure out what she was still really good at and what she needed help with. And I wrote it down wrote it down for her in a book. And then she was able to make choices based on what she could do and what she was having trouble doing. So within, I think, a year after the stroke, year and a half, she sold her house and went to an independent living facility where she is still there and she's still independent and she gets all of the help that she needs from the facility that she's there. It's an amazing place because it keeps her, she gets to go to Walmart once a week. She gets to go on trips. She gets to do things that if she was home, she probably would not have enough energy for. And they clean her room for her. So she gets her apartment cleaned once a week. All of her meals are provided for her. She walks down to the dining room. So places like that make it, and she has to ring the bell every day at 9 a.m. so they know she's okay. So the only thing that she needs help with that our family has to provide for her is taking her to medical appointments and helping her manage her medical appointments because she has lost a lot of her higher level cognitive functioning. So those higher level things are not something that she truly can do by herself. So my oldest brother does that with her.
As you're describing about your mom and how you've taken care of her, you're describing about you carrying your water bottle wherever you go. To me, being an OT is not just a job. It's almost like it became as part of something more than just a job. It's like it became part of who you are completely. I'm curious, when did that became more than just a job for you?
Oof. I would say probably in the beginning. So probably within the first maybe five years.
Tell me more. Why and how?
That's a great question. I think it's because I'm like in love with what we do and how we help people. Although, there's lots of things that you could focus on that may not be the best, the best parts of any profession. I focus on the things that I can do, not the things that I can't do. So even now, I don't work full time as an occupational therapist. I work 1 or 2 weekends a month in a subacute rehab just to keep my skills. But it's because I don't really ever want to give that up. Or the feeling that it's a feeling. You get a feeling of being able to care for somebody in a way that maybe other people can't, because your brain is, my brain is clear. When I'm with a patient or a resident, I'm there for them. And I have a skill set that I can help them, okay, you are having a hard time, you can't reach your remotes, or whatever their struggles are, problem solving with them, identifying what they want to be able to do. That is helpful in a way where sometimes, as a family member or like a friend, you don't think of things in that way, as far as like turning it around to see it from the other person's point of view, and just doing, like just this morning, my mom called me. So she has a little bit of aphasia. So when I talk to her, I have to be very, very present and listen for the words and what they mean, because they're not always the same. So she said, Danny, and it sounds like, something big is going on. I'm like, what's the matter, Mom? She goes, I would like a bib apron.
Mhm.
So now I'm like, oh, okay. So you want an apron for Mother's Day? Yes. So because the last conversation that I had with her, I asked her what she wanted for Mother's Day, and she could not tell me. It was too fast. It was way too fast. And that's usually now at this stage, that's what I do. I tell her and give her a month to be able to tell me what she wants, because she has to think, process the question, and then think about what do I actually need.
That's a very fascinating observation there.
Danielle, thank you so much for sharing about your background and, your own experiences with your family. As you were sharing, I was sensing that one of your starting points is always evaluating where someone is at and just meeting them there, meeting at that starting point, and then just really getting to know that individual and what their goals are. And I love that you shared that with your own mom. I was thinking about you're wearing the hat of the daughter and then the hat of the OT. Because of your credentials, does your family lean to you, more to help, establish, getting support?
So we definitely, I look at it, my oldest brother is my mom's, caretaker. He's the one that takes her to appointments. He's the one that picks up her medicine for her. He's the one that will be there no matter what. He lives close to her. So I usually work with him on, like, if he's having a hard time, I work with him on helping him cope with it, because he is the one. Or if she's, not able to, there are things that she can no longer do. And sometimes he's not sure why. So we'll kind of, I'll explain to him what I think it might be. And then, we'll try to do a lot of trial and error with some things, especially these days, because her strength is not what it was even a year ago. She's been very, very up and down a lot. So he has to, he goes there probably multiple times during the week just to check on her, make sure she's doing okay, taking her to any appointments, and just making sure she's taking her medication.
I have a curiosity, Danielle, about you. You've done both rehab and leadership. Do you see any correlated patterns that you noticed that have come up on both area?
Yes.
That you can share?
Yes. So with leadership, when I'm working with, whether it could have been a rehab team, or right now I work with either administrators, directors of nursing, unit managers of nursing facilities, they themselves, the people, they really take a lot in. So they are sometimes very stressed out, and the stress of that causes other issues within the work environment, and of course in their personal lives. So being able to talk about their own health and their own way of managing the environment, to me it's just like working with a patient or a client, trying to get people to understand that stress is actually something that, if you allow it to, it affects your health. So being able to give them options for that. I just finished a very large leadership. It was like a 6-hour course with about 300 people within the company that I work for, and talking to them about feeling psychologically safe in the environment, and how to get there with their teams, because our environment sometimes there's a lot going on. There's a lot of noise and changes and things that you have to do, tasks, but being able to give yourself the best mindset to be able to do that job and do it well, and then be able to take your whole self home and be the person that you are at home. So very similar to working with patients.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarity. Now, I'm curious here about you. It sounds that you have a lot of the time. You're the one who's giving and providing a lot of structure. You're at the giving end for the most part. I'm curious, as a coach, as an OT, as a professional, how do you take care of yourself, and what type of routines do you have to make sure that you're at the optimal health? Do you have any specific routines that you typically follow that
Yes.
that are non-negotiables that people probably would want to hear, but that you always keep up for yourself?
Yes, I prioritize movement. So exercise is a really big part of my life. I'm in my mid 50s. So when I was younger, it was harder to be consistent just because of my children, and my husband worked nights. So it was very difficult for me because we were kind of like shift parents, as far as being able to take care of the kids. So and my children have probably been in about 15 gyms in Western New York, just because I used to try to take them with me, after work. So, but anyway, exercise is a non-negotiable. So I am a consistent, and I don't know if are we allowed to say like the names of things or not really?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
So the gym that I belong to is Orange Theory Fitness. And that is a way of exercising where you are really trying to get your cardio up into a zone where you're using about 80% of your max heart rate. And if you can do that over time, those types of things really help with your cholesterol, with your blood glucose levels. It really is something that's powerful for us as we get older. So now that I do it regularly, it's not that, it's not that hard for me. But in the beginning, that was difficult because I'd feel uncomfortable with it. But after about a year, I'm like, this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like to move your body in that way. And I do prioritize my sleep. So sleep is a really big one. Both my husband and I are very regimented. So we get up early, we go to bed early. So that's another big one. And as far as the way that we eat, I am more of an intuitive eater. So if something, my body feels good with it, if it's something that I see no reactions with, whether it's too sleepy or too just, your stomach doesn't feel good when you eat it, I don't eat things like that. So I do focus mostly on eating 2 to 3 times a day and making sure that there's protein in every meal.
I have some follow-ups here that you got us curious here on exercise first. How many times a week do you exercise? And outside Orange Theory, because I think the circuit exercise is quite good. It's efficient. There's the group environment. It's fun. A lot of benefit around it, right? How many times do you do that in a week? And before Orange Theory, did you do any exercises that you tried before that didn't work out for you? Sure. Do you have any of those to share?
Yes. So I do that 3 to 4 times a week. So that's about 3 to 4 hours a week as far as I call that my formal exercise. But then my not formal exercise or whatever, I have weight training here in my house, so I'll do that. So weight training is definitely something that I'll add on depending. But as far as other things that I've done that I definitely like change. So I've been in and out of Orange Theory since it came to Western New York, but I've done boxing. Boxing is a really great exercise that I enjoy, or cycling, anything where I do like the community exercise. So anything where I can be with other people is usually what I'll try.
And then you mentioned about sleep. You have you wake up early, and what's the typical length of your sleep?
Somewhere between 7.5 hours is my normal amount of sleep that I get. And on the days that I do go to the gym, I'm up at 3:40 so that I could be there at 5 a.m.
You say 3:40 in the morning?
Yes.
That's very impressive, Coach Danielle.
But that took me, I want to say that took me. So in the beginning, that was really hard. And I would, come up with excuses as to how I didn't get up on time, or, I'll do it at 4:30. Well, that doesn't work. So it took me, I would say, almost a year to be consistent with that pattern. So that's important for, not patterns take time. So understanding that and not being too hard on yourself is important. And I knew that, the more I would get it done, the more the pattern would eventually be consistent. So
why did you select early morning?
I'm more of a morning person. So if the most things if I say that I'm going to do it early, even my cleaning, when I clean my house, I usually clean the house on the days that I don't go to the gym. That's when I do most of my cleaning, because I'm clear, my brain, I don't have anything going on. It's quiet. There's no extra noise in the house. So it's just the best time for me to do anything that I can do all by myself.
I can relate. My workouts are typically around 5:30 as well in the morning. That's the same thing. But for your sleep, I'm curious. Do you have any special routine pre-sleep, post-sleep, when you woke up? Do you have any routines that you typically do before sleeping and right after you wake up?
Honestly, these days I really just watch a show. Like I'll watch something very mindless, something like repeats or something, the old days, because you don't have to think about it, or you're not really following it. You're just listening. So I don't have anything extra that I do right before bed. I usually am going until after dinner, clean up after dinner, watch one show with my husband, and then it's time for me to go to bed.
And then I have one more, and I'm sure Ray has some curiosity here about diet and everything, about food.
Yes.
I mentioned you're more of an intuitive eater. Do you have any indulgence or cheat meals that you typically do or you enjoy, or do you still make room for that?
Like if let's just, like, my daughter's birthday is Thursday, so we're going to go out to dinner, we're going to celebrate, I'm going to get her an ice cream cake. So anytime I have sweets or anything that would not be part of my normal, I just have a little bit. Don't really try not to overdo it in the sugar category. So that's usually my focus, is trying not to overeat in the categories that will make it I'll want more of it.
Right.
So you give yourself the permission to have a little treat, but not overdo it. I like that. Still give yourself permission.
And definitely I try to be more mindful of regimented eating during the week, Monday through Friday. It's easy because when you're busy, I don't really focus on food when I'm busy, but when I'm not busy, which is the weekend is not as structured, I'm like, oh, I need to eat, I'll forget to eat, and then eat things, that may not be the best. So
you talked about your regimented eating. What does that look like for you? Do you do a meal prep? Do you have one day where you're shopping for everything?
Right now, I kind of go in spurts of how I'm going to do things, but normally right now I'll do a protein shake and a banana in the morning. So that's about 10 a.m. And then around 12:31, I'll have 2 hard-boiled eggs, a cheese stick, and olives. So I'll eat that every day, until I get sick of it. And then dinner was definitely a little bit more, less structured, and this is what I have every day. So I actually, most of the time I sit down with my family and we do the write everything down as far as what we're going to have for the week. So I'll ask the kids, do you want fish tacos? Do you want steak? We'll kind of do it together, knowing their schedules, because both my children are in college, live at home, and work. So I'm usually trying to make sure that when they're home, it's a meal that they like.
What I find, what we find, is that most of the people that have very good management of their meals or their diets really try to keep the same food choices as much as possible, and not for the boredom of it, but just to really regulate things, and also just to eliminate uncontrollable stuff that's really not healthy for you, and also metabolic health that you're trying to manage. And then factoring in to your point, if you want a little bit sugar, just the regulation of that has been the choice of most of the people that we've talked to.
Yeah.
Coach, you had a strong path in therapy and leadership, but why did you start leaning towards coaching? What made you enter that world?
Yeah.
Did you feel anything missing in the area? Because you have a strong background in your previous career or your career, but
Mhm.
why add coaching on your strong career already?
I think when I think about it, because a lot of times when I'm trying to work on something, I'm very goal oriented and future oriented. And when I was in the role of a regional rehab director, so I was kind of going to about 18 facilities and helping manage their rehab departments. I at one point said, this isn't really what I want to do for a living. I'm not a numbers person. I'm not a person that, although there are so many things that I can impact, it's the numbers piece. Like if a facility was struggling with, anything that had to do with statistics or anything that had to do with, the bottom line type of thing, those things made me more like I just didn't connect to it as much. So I remember, struggling a little bit and saying, well, if this isn't what you want to do, what do you want to do? And I read a book on Ikigai. Have you guys ever heard of that? The Japanese philosophy. And it talked about having a passion with a mission and with what is your purpose. So my purpose is to be able to help people in a way that's unique and genuine to them. So that's where the coaching is going to be able to take me to be able to do this forever. Whether I stay here in Western New York, whether I go, anywhere, within the country, out of the country, I'll still be able to do it. Whether I do it full-time, part-time, in any capacity, it is something that is an extension of what I've already been doing. But I think it was the book. After I read the book, I realized that I really to be able to work with people that are motivated to want to make change is very rewarding. Because sometimes when people really are stuck, trying to get them past the freeze point is challenging.
Yeah.
And people wanting to learn and grow even in their, the decades of their life where sometimes people, they might see it as it's harder for me to learn. It's harder for me to do new things as I get older. But if that's what you're doing and you're showing it to them and you are passionate about it, it will help them.
I know you mentioned about the book that inspired you, but every time as we're talking today and you're describing a lot of the things that drives you have to me there's something deeper that's driving it. I'm curious what is in you that drives you, that really pushes you in doing all of these things, because I don't want to say it's unusual, but because there's a lot, we've met people that are really kind-hearted, and there's always they have their own deep meaning of why they're doing what they're doing. What is it for you, Coach? What's really driving you to do what you're trying to do, even with switching towards coaching? As you're describing what you're saying, that's such a mission-oriented piece as I'm listening to you. But what is it that's driving you to do that?
I think it's the joy of helping others. So how do you want to help others? In what capacity? Being able to help people at the stage of their life where they are, they've already, they've had children, they've grown, helping them see their future and how they want to do it. That to me is very, very meaningful. And if I feel that way, I want to be able to give that to others.
It's that sense of joy that when you're seeing people thrive.
Yes.
Ray, you have something. I see you.
We need more people like you in the world, Danielle, who just want to spread joy and happiness and positivity. That's so wonderful. And to be able to help people. And that's, what our goal is at PrimeSpan. I'm grateful to know you. But I think every time we chat, that the joy that you're talking about definitely comes through. It's very genuine. Thank you.
I have a question. I'm thinking about I'm sure you've interacted with so many family members in your career. What do families often misunderstand about independence?
In my experiences, there is a time frame where people they don't mean it. None of this is intentional, but they see their loved one as the person they were 20 years ago. And somewhere over time, the things that they think they can do that is really, really almost not achievable for them, it's like they don't see it. Whether it's the person is hiding it because they're ashamed, or they just don't want to admit it. Sometimes it's kind of like a denial, but having conversations and saying, this is where your loved one is right now. This is how much help that we see them needing. And in order to go home and be independent, this is the distance. So how can we, what can we do to bridge the gap? And that's usually, bridging the gap between where somebody is and where they are today. To me, that is a little bit like, okay, so if I can't get out of bed, that's a big one. Being able to come up with a plan to figure out whether it's through adaptive equipment or just a different way of doing it, problem solving with people to help them figure it out. And who's going to help? Who's there? Are you able to help? And if not, can you hire help? We ask all the questions and try to give them, hopefully time to figure out solutions to the problems.
No, as you're describing that, this is it really reminds me of why we built PrimeSpan. And also why we also have built coaching for PrimeSpan, and because of exactly what you're describing. It is the most important reason why we built our organization, to serve the people and maintain, really to focus on independence and extend that as much as possible. If you can share with anybody, who do you feel the most called to help right now as a coach?
Right now, the generation, because I'm right there with them. So I'm pretty close, I am passionate about helping people within these age groups to be able to make a difference in their planning for their future. So if you are today a person that is not exercising, is not, putting your nutrition, into a plan for yourself, talking about that stuff, I feel very open, comfortable, like this is an important thing. And even my own children, your children are like whether they want to be or not, they plan their meals, they exercise regularly. So it takes time, but you can get there. So being able to help people with a plan to get there is definitely something that I feel extremely passionate about.
There's always part of this podcast where we always ask our guests, and we always ask our host when we're having a conversation, is we always try to give a nugget or a simple advice to our listeners about a simple habit, a simple routine, simple something. And if you have something simple people can start doing today, from your perspective, what?
I would start with movement.
And why?
Because if you are not able to move from point A to point B, you've lost a lot of your independence. So movement, if I had to kind of figure it out, which one, is where do we start? I would start with movement.
It's very important. Very important. Right.
And I'm thinking about that advice. I think that's a good place to start, because everyone, if you're capable, you can do it. If someone is starting out and they don't know what to do for movement, what advice would you give them? They don't really have a plan, but they want to start exercising because their doctor said, or, the coach advised them. What would you recommend?
I would probably want to get a little bit of information about their normal daily routine and see what, how many times a day do they get up? If they're getting up, multiple times a day, and that, there is no limitation of strength as far as in that, capacity of getting up, I would start with, are you able to take a 5-minute walk? Let's start with 5 minutes. If you're not capable of that, then we would try to come up with something different than that. But if a 5-minute walk and you start with the consistency of 5, and then we go from there.
It's that gradual increase of movement and not overwhelming yourself.
Yes.
With big goals. Ray, can you share with our listeners what's happening in the PrimeSpan world? How can people find us, and what are other things that they can do to connect with us?
Yes, thank you for that question. We want all of our listeners to stay connected with us on our social media platforms. We're on all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Find us there and follow us on our journeys, where you can follow Danielle and some of our other build coaches and see what they're up to. We also want to encourage everyone to join our Facebook group as well. And if you want to take the next step with PrimeSpan, join us and join our monthly membership. Or if you want to have more support from coaches like Danielle, then subscribe to our monthly coaching. We look forward to supporting you there. So thank you for listening.
This conversation, it's almost been a full hour, and time flies when you're having fun, as they say, right? Coach Danielle, for someone listening who feels like this really resonated, how can they connect with you?
As far as connecting to my link?
Yeah, connecting with your link, maybe social media or anything that people can find you, that you want to share with our listeners. Any project that you may want to share with them too, that they can find you, that you're passionate about. How can they maybe connect with you directly as well? Anything like that you could share?
Well, I have all of my social media. I don't know if all of mine are connected right now to PrimeSpan. I'll check and make sure that I am linked to all of them. But all of my social media is Danielle Dolan Rispoli is all of mine. So they can connect with me on there and see what I'm doing. And I'm pretty much checking in with PrimeSpan daily. So you can connect with me on there as well.
Beautiful. Well, this has been a meaningful and fun episode for us, Coach. Hopefully we can get you back in another episode, another topic, a lot more that we can talk about. And we appreciate your generosity with the time that you gave us today. And hopefully we can get you to, there's plenty more topic that we'd love to explore with you. But for our listeners, hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. Until next time, until the next episode. Bye for now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for spending time with us. If today's conversation gave you clarity or steadiness, take that with you. We release new episodes weekly. Follow the PrimeSpan Podcast on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep living well.